Hi, this is Marina from Darkstar Astrology bringing you the November forecast and also looking at the charts of the USA and the UK as well. So I think it's going to be a nice month because there's no really hideous T-squares. I mean, there are a couple of tense aspects, but the main ones that I'm going to really talk about, apart from the Mercury retrograde, which I've already talked about, but I will have a look at the big highlight of the month, which I think is really sweet, is Jupiter conjunct Venus. And whenever that happens, it's the perfect conjunction for a wedding. And actually, it was under that conjunction that gay marriage was legalized. So it's definitely got a marriage type of theme, but it also is the law too. So we'll have a look at that later. But let's just go in order, and I'll just pick out what's going to stand out. The main thing is the Sun in Scorpio decan 2, which contains the scales, and I do think it shows the balancing of the seasons as well, and we really are getting to the lowest points because on November the 7th it's the astrological point of Samhain. That's how you pronounce it, apparently. Which is, Halloween, and it's the Gaelic festival of, the dead, really. And it's a cross quarter. It's on the Wiccan cross of the year, and it's one of the cross quarter points. So it's halfway between the autumn equinox and the winter solstice, where the sun comes back. It's the days start to get longer again. We really are at our darkest point, and it is like the descent into the underworld, really. And the fact that we do have the scales of Libra, the constellation at least, in this decan, because obviously things have moved by precession. But actually these two stars, Zuben el Janubi, the star of loss, and Zuben el Shkemale, the star of gain, they used to be, before Libra was invented as a constellation, they used to be the claws of Scorpio, and Scorpio used to be a much bigger constellation. So it is, that's a bit of history there for you. But they fit very well with this kind of balancing of remembering the ancestors, paying back karma, going into the sort of the darkest point of the year where people do get quite sad because they're still adjusting to the fact that the days have got shorter as well. But the good thing is about the astrology, at least for this month, is that there's no really difficult aspects, at least. I think we have the very joyful Let There Be Light with Jupiter and Venus together in the sky. And also this magical minor grand trine, which I will show you what it looks like. So the base of it is the sextile between Saturn and Neptune, which I think really balance each other out. I think this is also, in terms of politics and how things are working in the ether, is that if you think the Conservatives as being, or the right wing say, as being Saturn and trying to keep some kind of order and trying to set boundaries, and on the other side you've got the Neptunians and the globalists, and we're all one. And I don't want to sort of make Neptune sound really negative, but these are the energies we're dealing with anyway. And either one of those, are too bad. Like, too many boundaries. You can't shut yourself off from things and be completely, in your own bubble, I guess. But that's more of a Neptune thing. But in your own prison, and at the same time, you can't be too absorbent of things as well. So we've got these in a really nice. Actually, they're both in very strong where they are. So Neptune in Pisces is extra Neptune, and Saturn in Capricorn is very Saturn, and they're both very strong. And then what happens is they make this little minor grand trine with the Sun and Mercury, so that's going to kind of activate them. And if you have anything really plugging into this, it should be very creative for you, because it's got the willpower and the staying power of Saturn, plus the imagination and the romanticism and the mysticism of Neptune. So it kind of starts on November the 4th with just the sextile. And also, if we think that's important, I don't know whether it really is that true Lilith is also going to be conjunct Neptune as well, which kind of makes me think it's even more supernatural. So then November the 5th, which is Guy Fawkes night in the UK, and with everything that's going on with Brexit, I don't know if something symbolic is going to happen there with Parliament, because it really is, it is getting quite crazy at the moment. So we'll see if there's any adventures with that when I look at the UK. But yeah, so you see this, it comes up to November the 7th, which is the actual point of Saturn. And that makes the nice minor grand trine with the Sun. And then it keeps going, and November the 9th. And then November the 11th is when we get the conjunction between the Sun and Mercury. So that is sitting in the throne of the king. So if, again, we'll have to have a look and see who this affects, but whoever is plugged into that will have superpowers, really. It's so magical. And we also get at the same time a sextile between Jupiter and Mars as well. So that's extra brave and very fertile too, because Ceres is also coming up to, Jupiter will be coming up to a conjunction with Ceres as well. So it's nice. It's actually quite a nice energy, even though we are sort of very solemn at this time, because we're reflecting on the ancestors. And then you've got the sort of poppy day around this time as well. I think it's the first Sunday of November. And again, there's always some kind of furore around this time. People trying to make a point of being sort of anti-establishment when this comes up. Like maybe there'll be rainbow poppies, or I don't know, something silly like that. Oh dear. But that conjunction of the Sun and Mercury will be on the fixed star Zubinel-Schimali, which I talked about in the Mercury retrograde. So I think very, very good for anyone that is decan 2, water sign, or Capricorn, or even Earth as well, because you're kind of plugging into that by trine. Anyway, Earth signs, water signs, and some fixed signs. I mean, anyone really, anyone who's got something plugged into 18 to 16 degrees of a sign, if it makes an aspect to this. And yeah, as the Sun moves forward, Mercury moves backwards to take its place in this minor grand trine. So it really goes on all the way from November the 5th to November the 16th. So a good 10 days of magical influence in the sky. Nice. And actually it's all very triney. There's a lot of trines going on. There's not many oppositions at all. And so hopefully we should get some nice results at that time and no tensions. A lot of opportunity for healing as well, because we are in Ophiuchus territory, which is the medicine man. And on November the 14th, actually, you will get the Sun on Unakali, which is it's the snake that he's holding. So it has a very kind of hypnotic effect as well. Here are some of the keywords, but I'll give you the link so you can read up on it a bit more if this is a star that's important to you in your chart. So it's rich, successful, thieving, cunning, lying, scheming, glamorous, criminal tendencies, rule breakers, duckers and divers, forgers, fraudsters, cheeky, lovable rogues, bohemians, activists, feminists, protesters, vehemently pro or against, anti-drugs versus drug addicts, teetotalers versus alcoholics. I mean, it's very polarized, isn't it? And I also put Christian versus agnostic, forbidden fruits, because, it is the forbidden fruit as well. So it's a bit like the Lilith star, really. Well, no, it's more like the Lilith, it is. It's like a Lilith constellation, serpents, because it's the temptation of the serpent. So that influence overlaps the magical minor grand trine. So yeah, there is definitely the potential for sorcery going on here as well. Mercury will be going over Acrox, the crucifix too. So there's all sorts of, yeah, I mean, it's a supernatural time of the year anyway, but we're getting it even stronger with the magical minor grand trine and the fact that Neptune and Lilith are together in Pisces. It just seems to be very, the veils are thin at this year. So just be vigilant as well, and don't lose consciousness. Keep your consciousness at all time. When I say lose consciousness, I mean just don't drink so much that you pass out, or take drugs so that you're seeing bubbles all over the place, whatever. But Venus is going to be on Sabic as well, which is the success and evil deeds star in Ophiuchus on November the 16th. So very witchy times, totally. Then the second half of the month after November the 19th is when we get the Mars opposite Uranus, and that starts building up from then, and it will be exact with the moon on Mars, no less. That will really fire up the passions too on November the 24th. So that's an interesting day. You also do get a trine from Ceres too. So I'm wondering if there's going to be some more of those Extinction Rebellion type protests as well. Green eco stuff. I mean, I don't really want to talk about that I think I might do that in the next moon as my rant, because I want to just keep to the astrology for this. But my view is these so-called green protests, they are totally controlled for some kind of agenda. So I'll go into that more and explain why I think that in the next moon. And that's not to say I'm Mrs. Organic, really against anything toxic in the environment. So don't think I'm some sort of climate denier. I mean, what the hell's that? There is pollution. Anyway, no, sorry. Let's not talk about that now. Oh yes, back to that opposition of Mars opposite Uranus is the same day as Venus is conjunct Jupiter. So that's really passionate. Nice. Oh, just so that you know where they are. Venus and Jupiter will be at 28 Sagittarius, and Mars opposite Uranus will be at Mars, very powerful in Scorpio, that it rules 3 degrees of Scorpio opposite Uranus, who's now retrograde, but at 3 degrees of Taurus. And then we just end the month with Venus joining Ceres, trining the Uranus as well. So that's exciting love as well. And then I think, no, Jupiter hasn't entered into Capricorn yet, but it's on its way. Yes, it will make its grand entrance into Capricorn December the 3rd. So we'll talk about that when that happens. But on its way there, there's going to be some exciting trines to Uranus. So with Venus and also Ceres. So, I mean, those two together, they're very fertile. But November the 28th, yes, that's when you get Ceres and Venus around 3 and 4 degrees of Capricorn trining Uranus. So those are like, I think, ecology and organic things coming together with technology and finding a way to sort of clean up the environment in a good way. So using technology for good things, hopefully. And towards the end of the month, November the 28th, Mercury is direct and it's back at 16 degrees of Scorpio. So it's making the magical minor grand trine again. And also Neptune's going direct as well. So yeah, 2 chances to really make some magic. And I think it's a nice month. It's got some juicy transits, it's got that kind of Persephone feel to it, like dark sort of resurrection and obsessional type of energy that you get at this time of the year anyway. But then the sun, of course, yes, I forgot to mention, the sun will go into Sagittarius on the 23rd. But again, Sagittarius has got the overlap of the sidereal constellations, which are, again, very much about the supernatural and very shamanic as well, and definitely going into other dimensions. So yeah, it's a dark time, but it's the witching hour, and it just means that we get to navel gaze a lot more during this time, because in terms of nature, it's all about, sweeping up the leaves and burning things and resting the soil. So it's not an active time anyway. So it gives us time to reflect. And it's the end of the year, isn't it? And it's time to buy horoscopes. And that's, when I always see the sales go up about this time as well. It's just that people want to sort of do a kind of review, I guess, of the year, and then it's like, well, what's next year going to bring? So it's that time of the year. It really is. So bit of geopolitics now. So November the 2nd in the US, the Jupiter and Ceres conjunction, which is very much about harvesting, that's opposite the Mars. And I don't know. I haven't been. All I know is that troops are out of Syria, and actually on that day for America as well, they've got Mars on Saturn. So that looks like a bit of a battle. If we think of Saturn in the US chart as being, I don't know, the deep state, and then Mars being on it, they'll be angry. But then Saturn in the US chart rules the, where is it? Where's Capricorn? Oh, money. So I don't know, cuts in budgets, austerity measures, I'm not sure. It also rules the third house of communications, which could be the media as well. So yeah, angry media, or some kind of legislation that's passed to make sure the media isn't so biased. I don't know. Or making, because the thing is, I guess Trump should be ramping up his campaign for 2020. And if he doesn't get a grip on the media, and if he doesn't stop people being banned on YouTube, he's not gonna, a lot of people, a lot of YouTube was really working on his side. So I don't know. I think he needs to kind of, it's not that you don't want it to, you want freedom of speech, but you want it to be an even playing field. So you can't sort of ban the left, but you can allow the right, I guess, to speak, and the people that are supporting him. So yeah, there definitely seems to be an unfair bias when it comes to hate speech. You're allowed to say, you're allowed to be violent and be nasty about so-called Nazis, but not the other way around. Now, this opposition of Jupiter to Mars, I think that's a real brave thing. And even though it's an opposition, I think that will serve Mars well. Now, Mars for the US chart is, well, that's hidden enemies. Oh golly. And it's also the fifth house of children too. So I don't know, is this more of this eco stuff, eco warriors, more children saying that we're all gonna die if you don't do something about the environment, you're robbing us of our future, that kind of thing. Children being used as pawns for this agenda, this I think it's called Agenda 30 now. It used to be Agenda 21, where they're going to make us all live in like rabbit hutches because human beings just aren't sustainable. So it just feels like we're being farmed, doesn't it? Ooh, just they need to breed more consumers. They want us to consume things as long as they're kind of feeding their, I don't know, it's horrible. Anyway, so I don't know how that's going to work for the US, but but you see, the main thing always is the Pluto issue, and US doesn't really have, well, Pluto won't make it to oppose Mercury yet. That's for 2020. And Mars opposite Uranus doesn't really touch anything in the US chart, so they don't have to worry about that. And the Venus, Jupiter, it's in the first house of the US, but again, it doesn't really aspect anything. So yeah, nothing to report there. But I almost missed this. The whole, the magical minor grand trine I was talking about, well, the Saturn part of it is going to be opposite the US Sun. So, and this is because of precession, because it moves Saturn back to 13. So it's kind of making a kite. So the US around the middle of November is really flying high. And I mean, the Sun is its leader. So if we're talking about Donald Trump, I think he'd be doing all right, I have to admire him, I had my doubts for a while. I thought, oh God, he's been taken to the little room that, what's his name, talks about, Bill Hicks. Maybe he had been taken to the little room and been shown the JFK video, but he seems to be playing it pretty well. And I do like the fact that he's taken troops out of Syria. So that's got to be a good thing, hasn't it? But of course, I've had people saying that, not completely ignoring the fact that nobody said anything about the Kurds when Obama was in power. But that's the thing. Honestly, they've thrown everything at Donald Trump and they've tried to impeach him and he's still there. So surely they would have found something by now if they had something on him. And the whole Russiagate thing, it's hilarious, really. So this Saturn then, if Saturn is opposing the Sun and the Sun is Donald Trump mid-November, I think it's going to be a very interesting chess game, and but I think he'll be all right. I think he'll manage to deflect it, because I think if they would have brought him down by now. So yeah, 4 years in. I mean, he hasn't built the wall, but Jesus, if he had, can you imagine? So anyway, what else have we got ongoing? Oh yes, November the 17th is when Saturn is exactly opposite the Sun. So expect to see something come to a head then to do with Donald Trump. I mean, it is in the house of debt, their Sun. So yeah, something to do with bankers as well. Yeah, that Saturn transit lasts all the way till November the 25th. So yeah, I thought the US was going to have a kind of chilled month, but actually no. Okay, so what about the UK? Well, there's a bit of symmetry going on, really, because the UK had Saturn on its Sun as well. And that was, when was that? Yeah, that was end of September, with the South Node as well. And I think, if I remember, that was kind of the time when Boris Johnson and Donald Trump were kind of singing each other's praises and saying they were going to do some kind of trade deal. I think that was during that time. But so there's definitely what's going on in the US and the UK with Brexit and impeachments, and they just seem to be linked. And I think it's because of Saturn and the Sun being happening at the same time. But also they're linked anyway because both their suns are square each other. So these two cardinal countries, UK sun is Capricorn and US is Cancer. So they are always going to have, I mean, unless they change their constitution, they're always going to be linked. And obviously they are, because ethnically the history is connected anyway. But that Saturn now is trining the UK's Mars, and that was going through towards the end of October as well, with all this Brexit, actually, what is it doing now? Because we're 24th of October as I record this. Yeah, it's happening now. And I must say, again, I'm impressed with Boris too, because I was very sceptical about him and with his tricky crow ascendant. And I really thought that he was like controlled opposition. He may be, but he seems to be, maybe it's like he has paid back some kind of karmic duty. And like somebody said that he's one of the kings of old. And he's managed to get in a position now that I think we can ask for a general election, because that's what we really, really, really need. And he's got a lot more further with this deal than Theresa May did. So he's had a lot of support for it, even though they've voted it down because they need time to look at it now. So there probably will be an extension. But I just think this Saturn trine the Mars it's giving us some kind of, I think it's giving who's Mars in this chart? It's giving us the resolve to see it through and not bottle out and not get too downcast, because there was a time, I think last week, I was just thinking, this is getting ridiculous. I don't think we're ever going to have Brexit. But now we can sort of see the way a bit now, and it looks like there is a way out. And if the Remainers are freaking out about a no-deal Brexit happening by default or by the back door, then there must be something to that. So I have hope as well. So yeah, that Saturn trine Mars, which is open enemies, which is probably the EU, is just being tough and sticking to your guns and not bottling out. So having the willpower, yes, and do things slowly and carefully, not rushing into this deal, which was kind of what they wanted to do. But I think it's wise that we are going to have another delay. But anyway, slowly but surely, that's Saturn. But yeah, so November the 11th, when we have this, when we've got this minor grand trine sort of trining on the UK's sun, there may be some kind of news and some progress as well with Brexit, I hope. But otherwise, what's happening with the Venus-Jupiter conjunction? No, nothing really that mega for the UK either with that one. It's kind of close to Mercury in the UK chart, but not really. 7 degrees away. Will it do anything? I don't know. No, the major thing really is Saturn again. Saturn will be squaring the nodes of the UK chart on the 24th of November. So, yeah, that's challenging. It's been challenging for forever. And again, it's another obstacle in order to fulfill the United Kingdom's North Node solar evolution, which is, what is it on? It's in Aries, and it's not on any particular star, but it's Aries Decan 2. Oh, actually, it's quite close to some stars in Cepheus the King. So it is to do with its sovereignty, but it's also in the house of open enemies and partnerships and marriage. So it is where it's going to align itself and ally, and who's its allies, who is going to be the allies for the United Kingdom. Are we going to go back to being with the Commonwealth? Because naturally, I think, as much, I obviously come from Europe. I'm not, haven't got any English blood at all. But I've always thought the UK was really very separate from Europe. It is physically, it's an island, and it's got so much more connections with the English-speaking Commonwealth, the Australia and the New World, rather than continental Europe, even though I know it's closest. But then look at the war, look at the world wars. They've always aligned with the US. So I don't know. I just think it's about that, and Saturn squaring these nodes. it seems, I mean, I know it's a bit funny, the jokes that people make about Trump and also Boris. They've both got yellow hair. They've both had balloons, gimps made out of them. Are they called gimps? I don't know. So they seem to, and they've both been called buffoons. But it's funny, it's very, very funny. And we are in a bit of a clown world anyway. But somehow things are moving along. And I think the cat's out of the bag now. And I think there's going to be a bit of holding hands across the Atlantic here. I do think the destinies are connected. You can so see it when you run the astrology next, one after the other with these two charts, the UK and the US. And it's more than just a language thing. I do think that it is like one body of people. And those that have emigrated from the UK to the US, they've still got, at one point they were linked, they were together, they were one mass, they were one peoples, they were one ethnic group, and they've just spread across the Atlantic. And I just think they help each other, even if they don't realise it. I think it's subconsciously. And I just think they're kind of awakening each other up. And now with the internet as well, you can really see it. And, I would have been counted as non-American at some point, I guess, because they didn't count the Italians or Sicilians as being white. So I haven't got an agenda of saying that either of these people are supreme in any way, but I do like them. And I feel like that they deserve defending. And because I grew up in these countries. So I grew up in the Anglosphere, and I've been to Australia. I haven't been to the US yet, and I really, really want to go. But there's something good about them. And God, to say that, it's like, oh my God, you think they're good? Yes, I do. I think they're great people. And otherwise I wouldn't be here. So yeah. So all you Anglo-Saxons and Anglo-Americans, I guess, I'm rooting for you, on both sides, really. And because I don't want to see that culture die out. I really don't. I just think it's important for the world. And obviously, they're not saints, either side. They've done things, but so is the rest of the world as well. And so yeah, I think it's important for them to preserve themselves and preserve their civilizations, because we all benefit from them. We just do. So yeah, that's my little rant at the end of this. And and also, it's just an anecdotal thing here. I actually went to a Brexit rally. I really wanted to check it out, and also I just wanted to see Nige in real life. On the way there, though, I was in a Uber cab to the station, and Nigel was on the radio because he does a radio show about that time. He did an hour before. And it's unusual because usually the cab drivers, they don't really have the radio on. And I always get annoyed with them. I'm like, why don't we have some music? Anyway, so they don't. But he had it on probably because it was a crucial point in Brexit. And so Nigel was talking and I was sitting in the back listening. And Nigel was saying that Boris's New Deal wasn't a deal. It wasn't a proper Brexit. And the cab driver just switched it off and just went, liar, like that. And then he started talking to me, said, oh, this Brexit thing. And I said, yeah. And he straight out asked me, he goes, oh, did you vote? And I went, yeah. And then he said, well, what did you vote? And I thought, all right, I'm just going to be honest. And I said, well, I'm Italian, but I actually voted to leave. And he went, oh, because he was obviously an immigrant and quite a recent one. And I said, and he went, why? And I said, because I don't want to be under Germany, under German domination. So I sort of turned it round to sort of make it sound like them be the Nazis. And because that's the thing. I mean, in England, it's like if you say you voted Brexit, you are a Nazi. So, especially in a freaking Uber cab, you know, I'm at their mercy. You can drive me anywhere. Anyway, so I had a sort of little bit of a discussion about it on the way to the station, and I got out. So, but it was a little bit of a hairy moment because I thought, do I lie or do I say yes? But then you think, God, it's so bad. I mean, if it was the other way around, if it was a taxi driver who's like, the taxi drivers are obviously, they like the British taxi drivers, your famous Cockney, they're all obvious Brexiteers. And if it was the other way round and there was a immigrant in the back and the taxi driver said to him, so what did you vote then? You know, they wouldn't even think twice about saying, I voted to remain. But if you're in that situation, I thought, you know, it was scary to admit it. And then you think, Jesus Christ, that's wrong. That's so wrong. And I had to validate it by saying, I'm Italian, but, you know, because if I'd said I was English, I would have come across as being a little Englander. So anyway, that sorry for that little end bit, but you know, I just thought I'll put it at the end because then if people get bored, they can just switch off and there's no more astrology anyway. All right then, so that brings me to the end of November's forecast, and I'll see you at the next moon. All the best then. Bye bye.